أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Reflections on the Risale-i Nur by Bediuzzaman Said Nursi podcast series. This is Mustafa Tuna. You can listen to the episodes of this series wherever you get your podcasts or at the website www.reflections-rn.org. Alternatively, you can watch the recordings on the YouTube channel Reflections RN. A rough translation of the text we will be reflecting upon today, inshallah, will also be posted at that website. Again, the address is www.reflections-rn.org. Whether you watch the videos or listen to the podcast episodes, please subscribe. If you're watching videos, please like, please share the links broadly so that we can get this word out there to more people, inshallah. So in this episode, we will begin reading the 22nd word. The 22nd word is about the existence and oneness of God. It is about seeing God's presence in the signs of His creation wherever we turn. If we were to go with the language of the Kalam scholars, it is about the indication of that which we see, the indication of the seen realm to the unseen realm. That is, indication of what is seen to what is unseen, the indication of what is seen to God. Burhan inni, in other words. Those who have been listening to the episodes of this podcast for a while will remember that when we did the 11th word, I had said that the 11th word is a paradigm shifter. The 22nd word is similar to that in the sense that, inshallah, if you understand it and internalize it, it should help us see the world with a new, in a new light, with a new perspective. As Ustad Nursi will mention somewhere in the middle of this treatise, we can look at the things that we see out there, what we call the external world, right? The objective, substantive world that's out there. We can look at them in two main ways. One is what Ustad Nursi calls manai ismi, the nominative meaning, that is what they indicate in and of themselves, how they point to themselves. So you look at the rock and all you see is rock, a combination of some minerals and a form. But the other way that we can see things is with their manaya harfi, that is their other indicative meaning. Inshallah, the details of this we will do when we come to that part of the text, right? But what that means, the gist of it, is that the other indicative meaning means that this thing is pointing to something other than itself. The rock is pointing to, indicating something other than the rock, and that is its creator. First and foremost, its creator. So we can see the 22nd word as an exercise in building our muscles, metaphorically building our muscles, mental muscles, to see God in His creation, to see the signs of creation on created beings. As usual, Ustad Nursi provides us with a parable, a representation, helps us understand a concept based on that representation, and then moves on to explaining what that representation, what the various themes and elements in that representation point to in reality in the real world. And as a result of this, the treatise has two stations. The first station is mostly the examples, the representation, the parable, and the second station is mostly what those examples point to in the real world out there. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ustad Nursi has two verses at the beginning of the treatise, which means that these verses inspired him to write this treatise, and those verses are parts of the verses that are quoted here. أستعيذ بالله ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون. This is the verse 14, chapter 14, verse 25 in the Qur'an, and God presents examples, representations, similitudes. We can translate this in many ways. Parables, right? Examples is a good word for people so that they are reminded. They are reminded. This is an essential word, like يتذكرون, so that they are reminded of what, right? Reminded of, I mean, it can be interpreted in many ways, but in relation to, in the context of this treatise, reminded of the createdness of these objects that we look at, the createdness of the cosmos, and therefore be reminded of the Creator. This is knowledge that we already have. That's why we think of it as being reminded, remembering, because we already met our Lord. In Qalu Bala, when he asked us, Alastu bi Rabbika, am I not your Lord? And we all answered in that realm of spirits way before we were sent to this world. And we answered, Qalu Bala, of course, here we are. You are our Lord. So this is an act of remembering. This is not an act of learning, at least for the spirit and the heart. The lower soul may have a different situation. The lower soul may not fit into this, but the spirit that met the Lord remembers in this world. That knowledge is already in the heart. That knowledge is already embedded, hardwired into our existence. We forget. By coming to this world, we forget and sometimes live in that state of forgetfulness. Sometimes we become heedless and can never remember. So we need to try not to forget. We need to try not to forget, and we need to look for reminders in order to remember what we need to remember. So وَيَضْرِبُ اللَّهُ الْأَمْثَالَ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. And the second verse is وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. And these examples we present for people so that they reflect, right? So these examples are reminders and also reflections or means of reflection. We look at these examples, we look at these parables, representations, we look at the world. We look at the world and we remember and we reflect on what it means. We do not just see and move on. We think about, contemplate the meanings that they have. If you go with the terminology we already introduced, if we see the ma'nai ismi, the nominative meaning, that is something that will jump on us immediately. We will not have to infer reason in order to grasp that meaning. But ma'nai harfi, the other indicative meaning, requires effort on our side, requires inference, requires contemplation, requires remembrance, right? That ma'nai harfi, that other indicative meanings of things require reflection on our part. And that is worship. Reflection, contemplation is worship. That is an essential part of why we are sent to this world as conscious creatures with partial volition, partial will, and an ability to recognize things, right? We are sent to this world in order to get to know our Lord and worship Him as a consequence and product of our knowledge of Him. And in order to do that, better and better, in order to excel, progress on that path of knowing Him, we need to be reminded. And when we are reminded, we need to reflect on what we are reminded about, not just pass and move on to the next thing, but we need to live in a purposeful way in this world, and the purpose being worshiping our Lord, knowing our Lord. And these two are, of course, connected at an essential, at a fundamental level. We worship our Lord because and thanks to our knowledge of Him. If we did not know Him, we would not be able to worship Him. So we want to know Him, and we want to worship Him with reflection, with knowledge, inshallah. So let's move to the treatise itself, the text itself. Bismillah. Bir zaman iki adam bir havuzda yıkandılar. Fevkalade bir tesir altında kendilerinden geçtiler. Gözlerini açtıkları vakit gördüler ki acayip bir aleme götürülmüşler. Öyle bir alem ki kemali intizamından bir memleket hükmünde, belki bir şehir hükmünde, belki bir saray hükmündedir. Once two men washed in a pool. They lost their senses under an extraordinary influence. When they opened their eyes, they saw that they were taken to an amazing realm. Such a realm that, due to the perfection of its orderliness, it was in effect a country or a city, or rather a palace. They saw it like a country, a city, or rather a palace. Why? Because it was orderly. It was not, random things thrown about, thrown here and there, and moving around without purpose, but it was all purposeful. Now, when I said at the beginning, this is also a paradigm shifter, this is what I mean, right? We need to imagine ourselves like these two men who washed in a pool and lost their senses, forgot everything, and they found themselves in a new world. This world is where we live, where we were born, what we are used to, and we become familiar with it. We become desensitized to the meanings that it contains. We become so familiar with it that we stop recognizing it. Children are not like that. Children, whenever they see something new and interesting, they say, "What is this? Why is this? Why is that? Why is that?" There's a stage in the development of small children where the intellect starts to kick in, when they start to recognize things and become aware of the world around them. They will keep asking these questions. So, but over time we lose that sense, and we don't assume this. This is not a conscious process, but we live as though we know everything, and everything is clear and open, and there's nothing further to investigate and learn and wonder about. No, the world is full of wonders, and we need to build ourselves up to that point where we recognize those wonders as wonders, right? So they open their eyes, they washed in a pool. We all were somewhere. Then we all went through the wombs of our mothers, and then we came to this world, and we found ourselves here, right? Assume that you found yourself here, new, without any exposure to anything yet, without recognizing anything around, what with the full faculties of your intellect and your senses and so on and so forth. They looked around, and they opened their eyes, and they looked around, and they saw that they were in an amazing realm. This is an amazing realm. Such a realm that, due to the perfection of its orderliness, it was in effect a country, a city, or rather a palace. It was an organized place, right? Things were not random, things were organized. And when we said we will have the full knowledge of what we know, what are organized, countries are organized. You have, if it is an organized, if it is not a failed state, right? You have a government, you have a parliament, you have a president, whatever. You have laws, you have institutions. Cities are organized. You have roads, you have power lines, you have waterways, you have sewerage, you have sanitation systems. You have, again, certain laws and regulations. You have houses. There are rules that govern how people enter these houses, etc., etc. It's like a palace. It's not only organized, but it's also beautified, right? It's beautiful. It is ornamented. It is orderly. There are servants, moving around and doing things, etc. But it's not only organized; it's also beautified and made comfortable for the dwelling of the people inhabiting for the inhabitation of the people who are brought there to live. Kemali hayretlerinden etraflarına baktılar. Gördüler ki bir cihette bakılsa azim bir alem görünüyor. Bir cihette bakılsa muntazam bir memleket. Bir cihette bakılsa mükemmel bir şehir. Diğer bir cihette bakılsa gayet muhteşem bir alemi içine almış bir saraydır. They looked around in a state of complete bewilderment, right? That complete wonder, complete awe. This was new and interesting, and it reflected power and wisdom and consideration and also mercy and beauty and majesty, right? They were in a state of bewilderment. They saw that if looked in one respect, a tremendous realm was seen. They looked in one respect with certain considerations in mind, or from a certain perspective point of view, and they saw that it was a tremendous realm. Look at the realm. Look at the cosmos. Look at how tiny we are in this huge thing that we call the cosmos, yet so much is going on this tiny small world already, right? In another respect, when they looked from another respect, it was a perfect city. And yet in another respect, it was a palace, but not a simple palace, not a like 100 meters by 50 meters, tiny palace built only for the dwelling of a king and his servants and so on. So no, it was a palace with an utmostly magnificent realm in it. The palace, right, contained the realm itself, the cosmos, the seen and the unseen, the observable, easily observable realm, and the other aspects of this realm that we can only see with the elevation of the spirits to higher stations. It was a magnificent realm. Şu acayip alemde gezerek seyran ettiler. Gördüler ki bir kısım mahluklar var. Bir tarz ile konuşuyorlar. Fakat bunlar onların dillerini bilmiyorlar. Yalnız işaretlerinden anlaşılıyor ki mühim işler görüyorlar ve ehemmiyetli vazifeler yapıyorlar. So they looked around, traveling in this amazing realm. They did not stay put where they are. They were curious, they were bewildered, they wanted to get to know what's going on here. They started to travel and look around. They were not just walking by, but they were observing and beholding things and watching and trying to understand and observe, right? So they looked around, traveling in this amazing realm. Now, how much of this realm have we traveled? We have traveled perhaps the face of the earth, and we are probing this space. So, but our eyes also travel, right? We cast our eyes all through the realm, through the cosmos, and God tells us to cast our eyes in, to see the perfection in it. If you cast our eyes to see deficiency and defects and so on and so forth, we will fail. We won't be able to see. So the opposite of that is we cast our eyes to see the perfection in the creation and the amazing qualities of the realm. We cast our eyes to see that. They saw that there were some creatures that spoke in a way, but these two did not know their languages. They did not understand. So there are creatures around, and this world is full of this cosmos, and especially this world where there's life is full of creatures. We look around and we see flowers, we see trees, we see rocks, we see butterflies, we see fish, we see animals, we see all sorts of things, elements and molecules and trees and plants, mountains, oceans. We see the stars in the sky, the moon, the sun. This is the realm that is accessible to us. This is what we work with, right? This is the material we have. This is what we have, and this is what we work with, right? They saw that there were some creatures that spoke in a style, but these two did not know their languages. Now, we look around and we don't just see things out there that are just sitting there or standing there, just being there. No, they are not just being there, they are speaking. So this is one of the paradigm shifts, right? We look around and we see things, and when we see them, we look with the assumption, with the not assumption, with the understanding that they are speaking, they are signaling messages, they are saying things, and they are saying things to us and to their creator and to other creatures. But from our perspective, what matters is that they are saying things to us. So next time I look at a tree, I don't just look and see a tree and say, oh, tree. I look and think about, what do you have to tell to me? Oh, tree, what do you have to tell to me? Oh, bird, what are you saying to me? Oh, star, what is the message that you are trying to convey to me? Now, we don't understand their languages. They don't speak in the language that we speak. I am speaking human language, and among human languages, right now I am speaking the English language. And by convention, by the establishment of the meanings of the sounds that I'm uttering over centuries, and through a process of acquisition and learning, we share that language. And when I say microphone, you understand a certain object, a microphone. You understand a microphone. If I went back 5 centuries in history to England and spoke to people still speaking English, and I said microphone, they would not understand anything, because that would be a word that is not in their language, but I would still be speaking. Or alternatively, some people say speak sign language, right? If I did this, right, that means I love you in sign language. If you don't know it, I'm just putting my fingers in a weird way and pointing that to you, right? You may confuse it with other signs, but in sign language, that means I love you. So this is communication when you understand what I said. This is communication when I am able to understand the meaning that is being conveyed to me with the signals, the sounds, and so on and so forth. But if I don't understand, or if you don't understand what I'm signaling, that does not mean that I'm not speaking. So if I don't know the language that the tree is speaking, if I don't know the language that the bird is speaking or the rock is speaking, that does not mean that the bird is not speaking, the tree is not speaking, the rock is not. They are speaking. It is my deficiency in not being able to understand them, and I need to make an effort to understand what they are saying. Right? But these two did not know their languages. However, it was understood from their signals that they performed important tasks and fulfilled significant duties. So these things that do signal meanings, one of the meanings that they are signaling is that, look, I have a place in this creation and I have a function in it, and my function and place in the creation is given to me according to a wisdom. I am fulfilling something important. I am a dust particle, a speck floating in the air that you see when the rays of sun come through the window. I am a tiny speck that you see when the rays of the sun come through the window, but otherwise you do not even recognize my existence. But yet I have an important place in this creation. I am speaking. It's up to you. It's up to you to find out what it is that I am speaking, I am saying, and what that significant the role that I'm playing in this creation. What it is that I am fulfilling as a duty in this creation. It is up to you. It is up to you, because it's not up to the rock. The rock does not have eyes. The rock does not have the ability does not have sight, does not have the ability to see, does not have hearing, does not have consciousness at the level that we have, does not have self-awareness, does not have the ability to process the messages, does not have intelligence. We as human beings have all of those, and therefore there is a duty that's on our shoulders. We need to learn to carry that load, fulfill that duty, so that we too would be fulfilling our function in the creation. right? If that speck of dust is fulfilling its function in the creation, right? Fulfilling its duty in the creation, it's good for it. It did its job. But if we are not fulfilling our purpose, if we are not performing our duty, what falls on us, then we are beneath that speck of dust. We are lower than a speck of dust. And we don't want to be there. We want to be elevated, right? We want to be elevated. O iki adamdan birisi arkadaşına dedi ki, şu acayip alemin elbette bir müdebbiri ve şu muntazam memleketin elbette bir maliki, şu mükemmel şehrin bir sahibi, şu musanna sarayın bir ustası vardır. Biz çalışmalıyız, onu tanımalıyız. Çünkü anlaşılıyor ki bizi buraya getiren O'dur. Onu tanımazsak kim bize medet verecek? Dillerini bilmediğimiz ve onlar bizi dinlemedikleri şu aciz mahluklardan ne bekleyebiliriz? Hem koca bir alemi bir memleket suretinde, bir şehir tarzında, bir saray şeklinde yapan ve baştan başa harika şeylerle dolduran ve müzeyyenatın envaıyla tezyin eden ve ibret nüma mucizatlarla donatan bir zat. Elbette bizden ve buraya gelenlerden bir istediği vardır. Onu tanımalıyız, hem ne istediğini bilmekliğimiz lazımdır. One of those two men said to his friend, so they were, in a sense, born into this world. They were bewildered by its beauty and orderliness and so on and so forth. They start to look around and, they recognized that things were speaking, although even though they did not understand, things were speaking. So one of them was intelligent and put two and two together and turned to his friend and conveyed to his friend what he understood from this situation. He said, surely this amazing realm has an administrator. This orderly country has an owner. This perfect city has a possessor. And this artful palace has a masterful builder. We should try and know him, for it is understood that it is he who brought us here. If we do not get to know him, who will give us aid? What can we expect from these powerless creatures whose languages we do not know and who do not listen to us? Moreover, of course, a person who fashions a vast realm in the form of a country, the style of a city, and the shape of a palace, then fills it with wondrous things from one end to the other, adorns it with the varieties of adornments, and furnishes it with meaningful, edifying miracles, wants something from us and those who come here. We should get to know him. We should get to know him. And it is necessary that we find out what he wants. Right? So, surely this amazing realm has an administrator. Everything is moving in orderly fashion. And things that would things are doing even things that would be to their disadvantage. This tree started growing, and it grew, and it came to a point and it stopped. It's not going beyond that. As though somebody told it, okay, up to this point it is yours, but beyond this point, I have other creatures here. I have other inhabitants of this land, and I am designating that space for the others. Same with the plant. It kept growing, and then stopped. Same with the body. My hand, as I was a young child, a small child, I kept growing and growing, and it came to a point and it stopped growing. Had other parts of my body kept growing and my stopped growing at the full mature size that my body reached, and my hand kept growing, it would become a burden on me. And things like this happen from time to time in the creation. And the one wisdom in that is that God shows us, look, this could have happened, but it's not happening. And it's not happening because of my intervention, because of my will. And in this, I have mercy on you. In this, I have love for you. And in this, you should see that I am caring for you. I'm nurturing you in this world. I'm nurturing this whole world as a cosmos, as a ecology, as a system, right? Surely this amazing realm has an administrator. This orderly country has an owner. And all of this investment, all of this material, all of this effort and work, and of course it will have an owner. This perfect city has a possessor. Somebody is in charge here. and this artful palace as a masterful builder. Right? Now we said we are born, but we are born all the consciousness um, and primary knowledge that we need in order to process this world. Right? We know that a palace like this, an organized, beautified structure like this, can only be brought into existence by somebody who is conscious and aware and has knowledge, and has life, and he sees and understands and grasps, hears, and has power. So that he built it, right? When we look at even a tiny hut, let alone a palace, but even when we look at a tiny hut, say a brick hut, we don't think, oh, the bricks somewhere, the clay in the ground somehow mixed up with certain things, and then it was somehow hardened, and those hardened cubic objects somehow came on top of one another and the hut came in. No, we say somebody built this. If we see a tiny deserted hut in the middle of the forest, we say, oh, somebody was here. Somebody was here. Somebody was doing all of these things. Somebody is doing all of these things, because it's not like a deserted, abandoned hut that we see here. What we see here is in motion, constantly changing and evolving and transforming. But as it transforms, it still transforms in an organized and beautiful, purposeful fashion. We should try and know him. So that person exists. This realm has an administrator, a possessor, an owner, a builder. We should try to know him. Why? Why should we not, try to know him? Well, for it is understood that it is he who brought us here. I mean, if he's in charge of everything, that there is nothing that's beyond his control, right? And that is necessitated by the orderliness of this whole thing, because if there was not that order, things would fall into chaos, right? Since it's understood that everything is in order, it's understood that everything is under his charge, and we are here, we are under his charge too. He brought us here. If you do not get to know him, who will give us aid? Who will help us? We, as these, two individuals born naked and powerless and impotent into this world, need help. Look, we have these, we are starting to have this pain in our stomachs, and we know that we need to eat things, but we don't own anything here. We are not in charge of anything. We don't control anything here, right? We need to ask from the one who is in charge. If we do not get to know him, who will give us aid? Who will give us aid? Everything is under his control. So nothing will give us anything if it is not by his command and through him or from him. If it is not from him. So we need to get to know him. That should be the object of our attention right now. What can we expect from these powerless creatures? Even if we were to think that we will go get it from the creatures here rather than the one who is in charge of the creatures, right? If we look carefully and try to understand their nature, they're powerless. They do not have the power to affect anything, nor do they have the power to prevent harm from themselves or from us, for themselves or for us. Right? If we do not get to know him, who will give us aid? What can we expect from these powerless creatures whose languages we do not know and who do not listen to us? Moreover, we don't know their languages. Moreover, they don't listen to us. They don't follow our orders. The tree is there in the middle of the winter, and I turn to the tree and say, give me a peach. What happens? Nothing happens, because the tree is not going to listen to my order. It's not going to listen to my command. Only when the spring comes, and God commands it to come back to life, the tree comes back to life. Only when God commands it to bear fruits, it bears fruits. It's not even me putting things together in terms of, you know, giving it water and exposing it to sunlight and giving it fertilizer and whatever. Right? First of all, as we went through this exercise before, on my own, I cannot even lift my hand. I cannot lift my hand on my own. We should all keep saying this to ourselves. I cannot lift my hand on my own. I cannot blink my eyes on my own. I cannot move my lips on my own. All of these things and everything that I do, I incline to doing it, right? I start the trigger, but from there on, it is this whole machinery that's working, and there is a power that's making it work, right? So I did not bring water there. I just inclined to the acts that would mean bringing water there, but from there on, it was him he was in charge. And even if, you know, even if he were to assume the inconceivable and say that I brought water there, then what? That water went through the veins of the tubulars of the tree to each and every one of its cells, and there it fulfilled a function. It was received in a certain way. It did a certain thing. What involvement do I have in that? Right? I don't have any involvement in that. Right? They don't listen to us. They don't listen to me. They listen to another power, and I want to reach that power. I want to get to know that power. I want to build a relationship. I want to connect to that power. I want to build a relationship with that power, right? They don't listen to us. Moreover, of course, a person who fashions a vast realm in the form of a country, the style of a city, and the shape of a palace, then fills it with wondrous things from one end to the other, adorns it with the varieties of adornments, and furnishes it with meaningfully edifying miracles, wants something from us and those who come here. Right? I mean, this is so much going on here. So much orderliness, so much beauty, so much purpose, so much wisdom, so much exertion of power, so much knowledge that is required for this whole thing to happen, right? So whoever is doing this, doing it for a purpose. And whoever put me here as this conscious being, he is expecting something. He must be expecting something from me. This basically, this cannot be for nothing. This cannot be futile, right? The one who is doing this, we can look around and see, has wisdom. He is doing whatever he does in a wisdomful way, and therefore my existence here is also subject to a wisdom. He must want something. He wants something from me. And for those who come here, it's not only me, but everybody who comes here, he wants something from us all. Now, the next question is, are we going to say, so be it, what's it to me? Or are we going to say, we should get to know him? We should get to know him. We need him here. Nothing responds to us. We don't understand their languages. Nothing listens to us. We need support. We need aid. We are impotent. We are weak. We are needy. We need his power, his intervention to fulfill our needs. But also, we want to know him because there is something beyond this. We want to know him for, safeguarding ourselves at the basic level, that most basic level, for safeguarding ourselves for what comes after this. Because we see that those like us all come here and then move on. So we will move on to somewhere. We need to safeguard ourselves there, and it's only through him that we can do it, right? But also, he's so majestic. He's so beautiful. He's so merciful, so powerful, that I am hardwired to want to know him, right? This is not even a logical, rational matter. This is this is something that comes from inside. Say it the heart, say it the soul, whatever you say. I am hardwired. I am hardwired to need to know him. Nothing will calm my inner anxiety down until I get to know him, until I get to know his presence and feel myself in his presence and know that I am working to get to him. I'm moving toward him, right? Until I know that I'm moving toward him, I won't be able to find tranquility. It is only through his remembrance. It is only through his knowledge and the knowledge of or recognition of being his presence. Only through that our hearts will find tranquility. Öteki adam dedi, İnanmam böyle bahsettiğin gibi bir zat bulunsun ve bütün bu alemi tek başıyla idare etsin. Now, remember, we have two human beings. We have two friends. They are travel companions. They are traveling around and looking around, and they're bewildered. They're both bewildered. And one of them, put two and two together and started to recognize what's going on here. But the other one, he said, İnanmam böyle bahsettiğin gibi bir zat bulunsun ve bütün bu alemi tek başıyla idare etsin. I don't believe that there will be a person such as the one you have mentioned and that he will administer the entire realm on his own. Why? Just doesn't believe. There is no good reason to not believe that there is someone in charge. Now, this is still the parable, right? In the parable, we are thinking about a country, a city, a palace, a house, an orderly structure, right? And in our human realm, it is people who organize these things. Be it a king, be it a parliament with a metaphysical personality and therefore acting in unison, be it a president, be it a village head, be it the king, be it whatever, right? There's no good reason not to recognize that someone is in charge here. But this other friend, which must be very puzzling for the intelligent one who put two and two together, the other friend does not want to put two and two together, and he just says, I don't believe that there will be a person such as the one you have mentioned and that he will administer the entire realm on his own. Arkadaşı cevaben dedi ki, bunu tanımazsak, lakayt kalsak menfaati hiç yok, zararı olsa pek azimdir. Eğer tanımasına çalışsak meşakkati pek hafiftir, menfaati olursa pek azimdir. Onun için ona karşı lakayt kalmak hiç kâr akıl değildir. Now the intelligent friend responded, look, if you do not get to know him, and if you remain indifferent, there is no benefit in that. If there is harm, it will be utterly tremendous. If you try to know him, the hardship involved is utterly light, and if there is benefit, it is utterly tremendous. Therefore, remaining indifferent to him is not rational at all, right? So here, the intelligent friend is using the full capacity of his intelligence, right? He is not starting from revelation, because in the parable we still don't have revelation, right? That administrator, person in charge, did not reveal himself to these two friends. They are still working things with their intellect, with their senses, and there might be the news that they are receiving from here and there to, like those things, those creatures that they saw and whose language that they did not understand. Still, with their states, with tongue of their states, they are signaling to them that they are fulfilling functions. So they are receiving information that is conveyed to them. They are receiving information through their senses, and they are using their intellect, and this is what we have so far, right? We don't have revelation, but even before that, we are at the level of what makes sense. What makes sense is that there is an administrator, a possessor, an owner, a builder that is in charge of this whole thing, right? And it also makes sense for us to get to know him and have a relationship with him, right? But if you are going to tell me no, I don't believe that, what that means is that you have not given enough consideration to this. You have not thought this through properly, right? Because there's no good reason for us not to believe in his existence. And even before that, before believing or not believing in his existence, the act of not contemplating his existence, right? That is not what you want to do. That's a dangerous thing to do, because who is going to help us? We need all these things, and we don't have anybody in appearance in the visible realm. We don't have anything that's going to help us. If we remain indifferent, there is no benefit in that. There is no benefit in not recognizing him, in not building a relationship with him, if he exists. Right? If he exists, there is nothing wrong. There is no harm in seeking his knowledge, in looking for him, in trying to connect to him. There is no whatsoever harm in this, and there is no whatsoever benefit in remaining indifferent to him, right? If there is harm, right? So there is no benefit in remaining indifferent to him, but if there is harm, right? Because, I mean, this is an if clause, but if you think properly about it, since we cannot receive aid from anything, there of course harm, right? There is harm in the absence of the benefit that we need, at the least. But if there is harm, it will be utterly tremendous. Left alone here, forlorn, we will not be able to survive. We will be in pains. The harm is utterly tremendous. And at the end of this whole thing, if there's nobody in charge, we don't see anything beyond this, we will be condemned to non-existence, complete non-existence. Along with everything that we get attached here, we get to love here. If we try to know him, the hardship involved is utterly light. You will think a little bit, but it is a light hardship, and it might even become pleasurable, because contemplate, reflecting upon the signs of creation is a pleasurable thing at the end of the day. But if there is benefit, it is utterly tremendous. We will get to know the one who is in charge of this palace, and also what comes after this. Therefore, remaining indifferent to him is not rational at all. If you are doing this in the name of science, in the name of reason, in the name of whatever nonsense that you have in mind that you think is representing the intellect and reason, you are wrong. The intellect requires that you give consideration to the existence of someone who is in charge in the face of your recognition of the orderliness in this cosmos, the beauty in this cosmos, and many other things that this cosmos is signaling to you, right? That is the rational, reasonable, intelligent thing to do. And you should do it. O serseri adam dedi. Ben bütün rahatımı, keyfimi onu düşünmemekte görüyorum. Hem böyle aklıma sığışmayan şeylerle uğraşmayacağım. Bütün bu işler tesadüfi ve karmakarışık işlerdir. Kendi kendine dönüyor, benimleme lazım. That vagabond man said, right? Vagabond, he's serseri. It's a difficult word to translate. His head is not under restraint, right? That will be somewhat of a literal translation. Basically, he's carefree, does not recognize any rules, regulations, norms. He wants to be free in an absolute sense, and does not recognize that is inconceivable. One who is free from the restraints of God's commands, what is forbidden and what is permitted, is a slave to his own lower soul, right? So he confused freedom with being a slave to his to one's lower soul, right? But he was in that sense, he was vagabond, right? He said, I see all my comfort and enjoyment in not thinking about him. So what's the point for him? Comfort and enjoyment. I see all my comfort and enjoyment in not thinking about him. Now that is not correct. He is confusing things. He is mistaken. There is no comfort and enjoyment in not thinking about him. Comfort and enjoyment is in thinking about him and recognizing him. And Ustad Nursi talks about this elsewhere. But, this is what he says. He is confused, he is mistaken, he is forlorn. He says, I see all my comfort and enjoyment in not thinking about him. Moreover, I will not deal with such things that my intellect cannot handle. All these affairs are coincidental and chaotic. It is happening on its own. What is it to me? So he is assuming this is all. He does not see the order in the cosmos. Cosmos, by definition, means order, orderly creation, or things put together in an orderly fashion. But what he looks and he sees chaos because he is not looking with the right perspective. He is not looking to see beauty. He is not looking to see order. Why? Because he says, he explains, right? He gave us to the reason to understand this. He thinks that if there's order, he will have to be a part of it. He will have to be subject to order, and he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to be subject to order. Right? Akıllı arkadaşı ona dedi. Senin bu temerrüdün beni de belki çokları da belaya atacaktır. Bir edepsizin yüzünden bazen olur ki bir memleket harap olur. His intelligent friend said to him, This obstinacy of yours will put me and many others into trouble. Sometimes it happens that an entire country is ruined because of one ill-mannered person, right? So this is not only about you. This is not a problem only for you. This is a problem for me too. This is a problem for me too because you and I are both part of a system. And when a cog misfunctions in the machinery, in the system, in the ecology, everything is harmed by that, right? When you burn so much carbon fuel and put so much carbon in the air, in the atmosphere, and the atmosphere warms up, and there is this climate change, meaning that we are getting warmer and warmer, you may be in a first world country, a developed country, benefiting from the so-called advantages of this whole process, but within a couple of centuries you ruin this whole place, this whole planet. And I living in, I don't know, Pakistan or Somali or Bangladesh or somewhere where the benefits and fruits of that development, that progress, that industry has not reached on full scale yet, I am suffering from it. Things like this do not happen only on a material scale. We are subject to a whole system that has material and metaphysical aspects. And when things go wrong on the metaphysical aspects of reality, that too harms everything altogether. These are connected. So when people sin defiantly, openly and defiantly in a country, there will be consequences for that. We will not, unless our hearts are open to these things, we will not see the direct, what we may call causal connection between the sin and, say, the earthquake, or between the sin and, say, the pandemic, right? It is connected. Our misbehavior, and this does not only have to be sin in the sense of not following God's commands, because those commands apply to those who have faith, and people who do not have faith also perform misdeeds in this world that leads to consequences that are harmful to everybody, right? The indiscriminate killing of life on this planet. The indiscriminate killing of life on this planet. And what I mean by this is not just taking a a bow and arrow and shooting animals, or taking a gun and shooting animals, but rather indiscriminate killing of life on this planet by causing the environments where many different species can live to disappear, right? By reducing the food supply, by reducing the oxygen in the water, by reducing the oxygen in the air, and so on and so forth. All of these things, right? All of these things at a level are sinful, or are disobedient, right? Why? Because there are two kinds of Sharia that we know. One is the Tashri'a Sharia, the Sharia that we know as revealed, that God reveals to people through His prophets, and the last and most perfect and lasting Sharia is the one that is revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we are all subject to it. We are all accountable before it. This is one kind of Sharia, and we are accountable before it as believers. The non-believers are also accountable for it, but they did not even come to that point where they can be held accountable for it. They are held accountable for their belief or not. They are not even in its circle yet, right? But there's another kind of Sharia. That is the Takwini Sharia. That is the Sharia of the creation, right? God created these realms according to a certain order, and within that order manifests in the form of patterns of regularity, laws. So if the law is that fire burns. If I put my hand in fire, I'm going to burn my hand. The law is that sharp objects cut. If I press a sharp knife onto my palm, it's going to cut. The law is that if you put too much carbon in the atmosphere, it holds more heat and the temperature rises. So if I put more carbon in the atmosphere, the temperature is going to rise. If I am not following the order, if I'm not following the law that the atmosphere will not tolerate more than this level of carbon, I am being disobedient. I am disobeying the laws of creation, right? So, and this has both physical and metaphysical consequences, or this has both metaphysical and physical meanings. On a physical scale, what it means is that I put more carbon in the air and it's sucking up heat and so on and so forth. On a metaphysical scale, I am being disobedient to the ruler, the administrator, the possessor, the owner, the builder of this place. So the intelligent friend told to the other one, "This obstinacy of yours will put me and many others into trouble. Sometimes it happens that an entire country is ruined because of one ill-mannered person." Once again, that one ill-mannered person, that may be sinful acts, start from lying. Don't start from that's a tremendous ill behavior, right? Lying, killing, backbiting, not having concern for our neighbors, sexual misconduct, all of these things that are against the Sharia, revealed Sharia, and against the Sharia of creation, they all have consequences on the whole system. And that system, that reality, is not only physical, it is physical and metaphysical, and it has consequences on the whole thing, and we are all harmed. That harms all of us. And the opposite of this is that when people do good, the whole system flourishes. The whole system works better. And that's why if we exist for the sake of those who have attained that station of God's friendship, sainthood, right? We exist for the sake of the innocent ones, children, innocent animals. If the whole thing is not just coming apart and exploding, that's not happening, because there still are people who say Allah, who say Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest, who believe in God. And when that ceases to be the case, when nobody says Allah, Allah in this world any longer, it will explode. That will be the trigger of the rising, the hour, the last day, the day of judgment. Subhanallah. We need to be careful. We need to be careful about what we think, what we say, how we behave. We don't want ill-mannered people in this universe, in this cosmos. We don't want ill-mannered people, and the solution to that is to help them to fix their manners, inshallah. So that vagabond person will start to speak some sense. There will be some sense in him, as we will see here in this sentence. It seems that he is at least starting to consider the possibility of the existence of that ruler, that administrator. It seems that he is scared enough about the consequences of this whole problem that is here, not fulfilling his function. So he turned to his friend and said, yine o serseri dönüp dedi ki, ya katiyen bana ispat et ki bu koca memleketin tek bir maliki, tek bir sani vardır, yahut bana ilişme. Then again, that vagabond turned and said, either prove to me definitively that this vast realm has only one owner and only one maker, or otherwise do not bother me. So at least he is now willing to listen to the proofs that the intelligent friend has. For some people do not even listen, right? And you can't do anything for them. They are lost. They are lost in their aggrandized selves. You can't do anything for them, right? But this person, he's vagabond and so on and so forth, at least he now turned and said, okay, if you are saying that that's the case, and if you are suggesting that the bad consequences of not recognizing him might be so bad, then at least prove it to me, right? Either prove to me definitively that this vast realm has only one owner and only one maker, or and all the consequences of that, right? He's in charge, you are under his command, you will have to listen to it, and so on and so forth. Or do not bother me. So now the good friend has a task, right? Has a mission to fulfill. Cevaben arkadaşı dedi, madem inadın divanelik derecesine çıkmış, o inadınla bizi ve belki memleketi bir kahra giriftar edeceksin. Ben de sana 12 burhan ile göstereceğim ki bir saray gibi şu alemin, bir şehir gibi şu memleketin tek bir ustası vardır. Ve o usta her şeyi idare eden yalnız odur. Hiçbir cihetle noksaniyeti yoktur. Bize görünmeyen o usta bizi ve her şeyi görür ve sözlerini işitir. Bütün işleri mucize ve harikadır. Bütün bu gördüğümüz ve dillerini bilmediğimiz şu mahluklar onun memurlarıdır. In response, right, he has a mission now. He took the challenge, right? Because it is reasonable, right? What he understood by putting two and two together is reasonable. It is clear as daylight, and therefore it's demonstrable, right? Because the vagabond said, demonstrate it to me, show it to me, prove it to me, and this friend will now say, okay, I'll do it. That's easy. Only use your intellect. He said, since your stubbornness has reached the degree of lunacy, and you will bring scourge on us with your stubbornness, right? Because I cannot just leave you alone, and that's our situation too, right? We cannot just leave disbelievers alone. But this doesn't mean that we go and force them to believe, because belief is not something that can happen through coercion, right? But we cannot leave them alone either. We need to provide them the good reasons and good example. And we cannot just live as though they do not exist. No, this is part of our function in this world. We need to provide the logic and the model, right? I will show to you with 12 demonstrations that this realm, which is like a palace, and this country, which is like a city, has only one builder. And it is only that builder who administers everything. He has no deficiency in any way. That builder, who is not visible to us, sees us and everything, and he hears their words. All his works are miraculous and wondrous. All these creatures that we see yet do not understand their languages are his officials. So he is not going to prove the existence of that administrator only, but this good friend has looked around, and what he has grasped in the cosmos, in the orderliness, beauty, and so on and so forth of the cosmos, gives him information, further information about that administrator, that creator. He is on the path of recognizing him, and he is able to gather information about him from this, right? And he says, I'm going to show it to you with 12 demonstrations. Now, we will not start the demonstrations themselves. This is the beginning of the story, and the story continues because the 12 demonstrations we will see will still be in the story, the intelligent friend telling the vagabond friend, intelligent friend demonstrating to the vagabond friend. Therefore, we will still be within the paradigm of the parable, but everything will start to make sense, inshallah, as we read those demonstrations. And then we will move on to the reality of these. We will get out of the story and start thinking more deeply and in more detail about the reality that we are observing in our world. And that will be the second station of the 22nd word, inshallah. Now, this friend says 12 demonstrations, and demonstration is a strong word. It has a strong claim to it has a strong claim in logic, right? He's not just saying I'm going to provide evidence. He's not just saying I'm going to provide proof. Demonstration, the gist of the meaning of the word demonstration or burhan is that it formally provides a line of argument, line of reasoning that is valid, formally valid, and what you put into it. The subjects and the predicates and so on and so forth of this line of thinking all correspond to reality that's out there in the world, and therefore it is foolproof. It is if you still reject it, right? If you still reject it, you are rejecting it because there is something wrong with your intellect or with your ability to use your intellect. So it's a strong word, and this intelligent friend says, it is so clear in my mind and my heart and my intellect that I can prove this to you with demonstrations, and not only one but 12 demonstrations for the existence and oneness of God, that he is the one who is in charge of everything. He is the only one that has built and administers everything. He is perfect. He has no deficiency in any way. He sees us, and he hears us and sees and hears everything. And all his works are miraculous in the meaning that everything that we see around us are works of, products of, outcomes of his power, and therefore they are wondrous. This is not something that can happen on its own through anything that exists in this visible realm, right? So there is a power that continuously intervenes in this realm and transforms it, puts it from one shape to another, modifies it, changes it, is in charge, basically, right? And all these creatures that we see yet do not understand their languages are his officials. Everything is obedient to him, and of course the natural consequence of that will be that we too should be obedient to him. So inshallah we will continue with these demonstrations in the next episode. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim wa akhir da'wahum anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha. Allahumma